If you have an Epson EcoTank 2720 converted for sublimation with Hiipoo ink and your sublimation prints are way off color, like this example, I have a solution for you. It is actually possible to get your sublimation print to come out the same color as what you see on your screen. And I'm going to show you what you need to do to solve this problem. And if you're a Mac user, I highly encourage you to do this step first to check something out with your printer drivers before moving on. If you're not a Mac user, you can go ahead and skip ahead a little bit. All right, so this is my old Mac, and if you go into your system preferences, click on printers and scanners, find your 2720 in the list and click on it. Take a look over here in the middle of the right hand side of the screen where it says the name of the printer, and if you see the words AirPrint in the list, you have the Mac driver that doesn't give you access to all of the Epson print settings that you're going to need. And if that's the case, you're going to have to reinstall your printer driver. So just to illustrate, if I go over here to this file and go to print, and here's my Epson 2720 here. You can't really tell that it's AirPrint here, even though we know that it is. But if we click in this little drop down for the settings and we go, we see layout, we see paper handling, media and quality, but we can't get to the color settings at all. They're just not here. And the other tip that it's not quite right is the things listed in here don't seem right. You don't see the name Epson in front of any of these paper types because this is kind of a, I don't know how to describe it, if it's an Apple thing or what, but it is not the right printer driver for the job. So if you're on a Mac and you see AirPrint, I'm going to show you how to fix that. So you're going to go over here, back into your printers and scanners window from System Preferences, and just delete this little puppy because he's no good anyway. Then we're going to click Add. And you're going to see the Epson ET in the list here because it's on my network, and that's fine. And this is where it gets crazy. Down here, we don't want to use the auto-selected Epson ET 2720 series driver. We want to go down to select software and then find it in the list. I know, same name, everything. Why should it matter? But there it is. It's in the list. This will get us the Epson software settings that we need. It looks like the same thing, but it's not the same thing. So we will add it. And if you have to wait for that software list to populate for a few seconds, that's perfectly fine too. And see, lo and behold, no AirPrint over here now. That's exactly what we want. So now, if we look back in our document and we go to print it, and we click on this drop down, look here, we have print settings now. Yay, we have color options now. Yay, that's exactly what we need. So Mac user, make sure that you've got the right printer driver. Your printer driver should be 12.62 as of this recording at the end of March 2023. Alrighty, so Mac users, we have our printer driver sorted out, so we are now on the right path to fix our colors. Windows users, these settings also apply to you. And if you have any trouble mapping what I'm about to show on the Mac to the settings you see in your Windows Epson print driver, check out the video by Angie Holden from thecountrychicottage.net, and I'll link to that in the notes for this video. She walks you through exactly where all those settings are. So regardless of which printer driver you have, let's get started and solve this problem. One thing that Angie suggests is printing a color chart, and she used one from htmlcolorcodes.com, and we're going to do the same thing. So if you go to this site, click on chart, there are 3 color charts on this page. Any of them will work for this. Personally, I prefer the material design color chart because of the way that it downloads. So in between the actual chart and the heading is a little download button. just go here and download the ping. You don't need the scalable vector graphic file for this, and SVGs don't always open easiest in every application where you print images. So let's just go with the ping, and we're going to print it and sublimate it and then compare the results and then figure out where we need to tweak our colors. All right, so here's our color chart, and this is where the secret sauce happens. When you go to File and Print, and we scroll down to the Print options or printer settings, first we're going to click on color matching. Now, every video you've watched, every video I've watched, every blog post we've read tells us we should be choosing the color sync option for this printer and then picking the printer color profile that came from the ink manufacturer. Except we already know that doesn't work. The other thing is you may be just relying on the Epson color controls and you found that doesn't work either. Your colors are too blue or too pink, and I'm going to show you why. So we're going to make sure we have it selected on Epson color controls and click OK. And then as long as we're here, click on print settings and adjust your paper settings to the paper type that you use, typically Epson matte and the high quality print. And of course, mirroring our image so that when we sublimate it, all the text comes out frontwards. And lastly, under color options, here's the trick. So when you first hit this page, let me just reset this. This is what this will look like to you. It'll say manual settings, and it will be selected, and then there's two more choices. Under manual settings, you'll spin down advanced settings, and by default, the advanced settings will always be on Epson Vivid. The problem here is that Epson Vivid is already applying its own color correction to your printer based on Epson inks, which of course we know won't work. And this is why your colors are off even if you're using the Epson print drivers. So as Angie suggested, we're going to switch to Adobe RGB, making sure you leave the gamma at 2.2. Now for this particular computer and printer, I got away with just bumping up the brightness a little bit to take some of the muddiness out of the colors, pulling the contrast down just a hair to make sure that our lighter tones didn't fade right out to white. And then I've started to experiment with adding more saturation into the colors to get a little darker print of the deep colors. So I suggest playing with these settings a little bit at a time, because if you make a bunch of changes at once, it's going to be hard to figure out which ones gave you the best results and which ones might be skewing your results as you work through this. So I've made my settings. I'll click OK. Now before I click print, I'm going to go up here to where it says presets, and I'm going to save the current settings as a preset. And you can see I've already done that here. I'm going to back this number 1 out. I called mine Sublimation Mirrored 8 -4 8 because those were the settings that I just made in that print dialog. And that's the other thing. Take it from me. If you're testing on these and you're tweaking and you're tweaking and you're tweaking, you're going to get mixed up and confused and you won't remember what setting you just plugged in there. So naming your preset appropriately or even taking a screenshot of that page where those settings are will save you a lot of headaches. So you name it and then you save it. And if you're on a Mac using the OS Ventura, I've discovered that it now offers you 2 kinds of printer presets here. I don't think I saw this in the older version. Maybe I did. But the one you want is the print job preset. The custom preset is kind of an advanced thing where you can use it to temporarily change a custom preset that you made. I'm kind of questioning the value of that one, but in any case, just make sure it says print job preset and give it a name that means something to you. Put the name of your printer in there, put in there the type of substrate you're printing on in case you make different settings for fabric versus mugs or whatever it is. And then we're going to click OK and it'll save. So from here you can print your color chart, sublimate it on a piece of white fabric, and then you're going to compare it, that sublimated print on your white fabric to what you see on your screen. And this is why we're going to compare it. So here's my little buddy again, my little dinosaur dragon thing. On the right, this is my old tired out MacBook Air. This is a MacBook Air 2015. It's 8 years old. It has an LCD screen, so nothing fancy there, and the light's probably more than a little bit tired after 8 years. Over here on the right is my brand new MacBook Air with a Retina display. And look at the difference, right? This guy's much more purple on the left, and the one on the right is very blue, and the golds have almost got a greenish cast to them. So how do we fix this? That's the next step, and let me show you this. Even though I got away with just tweaking the brightness and the saturation and the contrast, you may have to tweak the actual colors, like with the old Mac. So this is color.adobe.com. This is Adobe's color wheel. You can use this free. There's no sign-in required, no Adobe ID, anything like that. When you first land here, you'll be on the analogous setting, so just switch it to complementary. This is a little spinner. So right now, my dragon's like a bit too purple, right? Or too blue, rather, a bit too blue. And if I turn this little spinner into the blues, we can see that the opposite of that is yellow. So the moral of this story is if I need to take away blue, I do that by adding yellow. My dinosaur is also kind of greenish. We saw that on his chest. It's supposed to be gold, but he's looking a little green. And if we're taking away greens, we're actually adding the magentas, so right around in here. So magenta is opposite green. So if I want to pull out green, I add magenta. And lastly, the cyans, which are this nice light aqua blue color. That's kind of the orangey or the hotness. So you remember in that image I showed you at the beginning of this video, his wings were printing super orange. So that was yet another example of where cyan would have offset that a little bit by adding more. In this case, though, we're not fixing the Hiipoo inks with the Hiipoo profile because we can't. We're just adjusting for what we see on the monitor so that what comes out of our printer matches. Going back here, if I were printing this little guy in those print settings where the colors are, making sure that it's still Adobe RGB, if I need to take away some bluish cast, I'm going to add some yellow. And if I'm going to take away that greenness on his belly, because we saw on the color wheel that green was opposite magenta, I'm going to add some magenta to get that greenness out of there. And I probably wouldn't even monkey with the cyans yet. I will tell you that your best bet is to play with these settings one at a time and sublimate in between each. Because otherwise, if you make too many changes all at once, you're not going to know which ones gave you the best benefit. Then when you get all done and you're pretty happy with the colors you've dialed in, lastly, print a known image like my little dragon guy here, because you know what it's supposed to look like, and you can sublimate it and then compare it to what you see on your screen. So there you have it. Now we can take our converted ET2720 Epson printer and probably other Epson models as well, and we can configure the print settings using the Epson print color management with the Adobe RGB settings to get what comes out of our printer to match what's on our screen. And while it probably goes without saying, I'll just add that if you switch computers, that's probably a time when you're going to have to go back and go through this process again to tweak for your new monitor, just like I had to. So good luck, happy printing, let me know if it works for you. Thanks for watching.